interaction from a police officer in relation to the location. I will ask the Sports Council first, and then Mrs. Skeet to respond to you in relation to what is being proposed to get that particular location back up and running. But I am aware that because of COVID, the rat infestation that you're talking about took hold, and a lot of equipment at the location that was being used for the same baking and culinary work had to be discarded. But I will allow Sports Council and Mrs. Skeet to respond to you.
Thank you, Minister for the City of Bridgetown, Mr. Lane. I'm glad that you are back in good health as well. In terms of Emerton, that really falls under the Community Development Department. And we had visited there on a number of occasions, along with Community Development when we went on a tour. And you are correct, there were issues of bird drop-ins and so on and so forth. But we really, Hanif Adam, who is the caretaker there, he really takes care of the field. And he's so magnanimous in that he also assists with community development, but really, that facility really falls under the Community Development Department. So it's not much I can speak to. I can speak to Murphy Pasture across the road and to say that since I can kill two birds with one stone, that we are in the process of redeveloping the court, the hard court at Murphy Pasture, regrading it, and they put a road tennis court in it as well. So we are fixing up Murphy's Pasture because that pavilion belongs to us. But community development, Ms. Keaton can speak to. Emerton, thank you.
Good evening once again. In relation to Emerton Community Center was closed for, this is almost 2 years, We had, as the member for the city did indicate, we had rodent infestation. And we undertook repairs on 2 occasions, but when we realized that the problems seemed to be more challenging than we were able to deal with at the department, we sought the intervention then of the environmental health officers. So we had that visit 2 weeks ago, and what we discovered when we were there is that because we did discard a lot of the stoves which were in there which were not working, we discarded those. We realized then that we have only 1 or 2 areas to actually treat to in order to have that center up and operational. The other challenge there is that we are confronted with some indiscriminate dumping there on that location. So we have sought now to engage the community through a community walkthrough, through, if needs be, a community meeting in order to engage the residents. And we are going to partner with the Ministry of Health as far as that initiative is concerned. So in relation to the use of Emerton, we are hopeful that we should be able to have that facility up and functioning in the new financial year. But we are still awaiting, because the Ministry of Health, they indicated to us that they're going to give us all of the assistance we need in relation to identifying how we can address the issue of, the rodent infestation. And we would have regular baiting then by the vector control unit so that we are well on top of those situations. But indeed, it has been a very worrisome situation there at the Emerton Community Center. Because we recognize the importance of having that facility open, I receive calls on numerous occasions in relation to having that facility pressed back into use. But at that time, I indicated to the individuals, because my concern was the rodent infestation, I could not grant center use because the health and safety of center patrons, that is paramount. So with that under control now and some minor repairs, we should be able to have that center up and operational within the next financial year.
All right, thank you very much for that. And Minister, I know you would take lead on this, so I can be comforted by the Chief Community Development Officer and also the National Sports Council Director that things will proceed smoothly. So I will leave it at that, and need be, and hopefully it will not need to be revisited by either me or by the mighty Gabby. One of the things I want to say on closing that and moving on to my second question is this. On one or two of these study tours that I have taken, and this administration is really about transformation. I can say I feel a little worried that I know that we are not fully developed, but we talk about being world class. Some of the places I visit, I've seen they have these 4-story, 24-hour community centers, multifaceted, where you can have pull-out bleachers, they can practice, they can have concerts, they can make money, they have areas for NGOs. I would like to see us move towards a new future, a new vision, to have greater vision. If we can be world-class, we have to have world-class facilities. Where we are right now, compared to where we need to be, I think that all in the ministry, all in the government, all representatives, all MPs should start to think about not just how we repair these road problems and this community center too small and this was an old bath, et cetera, but how do we get to the promised land? How do we get to what is the pinnacle that can serve the community and young people? The second question I have really is about moving from community to national. I don't know, I think someone touched on this, but Minister, you were at my branch meeting on Sunday and this came up, and people are still asking, so I don't know if it was asked before and it wasn't answered in the way it needed to be answered, but this is about young people I have in my community and in all your constituencies that are part of national teams that smell hell to go and represent this country on national duty. Or in preparation, they have to go into camp so they could gel, so they could represent, because we want to be here, we want to be proud, and we want to clap, and we want to get the silver. But it is take work and sacrifice to do those things. And I thought that this was a matter that would have been settled before. I know we have a national sports policy coming, but I would like the minister, you or whoever you designate to answer this, once and for all, what this government and administration plans to do in relation to national players and their representation and national duty in this country, and even pre-national duty when they are asked to come off and go into jail camps where they can gel. My greater concern is the fact that one of the parents that complained on Sunday, her son actually works at a government institution or a statutory corporation. So that is even more concerning for me. But Minister, I would like you to speak to that specific burning issue which would trouble all of us.
Sorry, Honorable Member, again, this was discussed in detail this morning. The Honorable Member for St. James North brought chapter and verse to the chamber in relation to this vexing issue, and he indicated that Section 30, I believe, of the Employment Rights Act speaks directly to this, that it is in breach of the law for any employer to stop one of our national athletes, or sorry, to dismiss or fire one of our national athletes who is representing country off island. So the matter was raised this morning by the Honourable Member for St. James North, where he clearly articulated that it is in the law books, that it is wrong and against the law to dismiss any national athlete who's representing country.
Excellent, thank you. The art of politics is repetition. When we hear it this morning, just heard it in the evening. Third and final question, Mr. Chair. It goes to really and truly, where does the ministry go from here or after estimates? The reason I ask this question is as I go through the estimates, I see that you have quite a tight budget, but a lot of questions, queries, suggestions would have been raised over the few days. And the question is, Minister and your team, what is really your plan now to go back and to be able to restructure based on what colleagues have asked and where you've been challenged or where suggestions have gone. And one particular thing I want to insert there in terms of the ministry, where is the ministry at in relation to data collection and data analytics? And the reason I ask that question is that sometimes you may target a program in a particular place for a particular person, but the research may tell you that it needs to be placed in another place for a different person. It's called evidence-driven programming. So for me, where do we go from here, and what is the ministry's stance on data collection and data analytics to make sure that you have evidence-based programming in the right place for the right person at the right time? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Honorable Member. When I joined this ministry, I believe in 1995, there was a mantra that this ministry is research-driven. Yes, you're correct. Director Carter was at the helm at the time. And I want to suggest to you that all of these years later, it is still a case where the ministry is research-driven. We have the School Leavers Traces Survey that is done every single year to gather information from those sixth formers or fifth formers who are exiting the school system. And we do this at every single secondary school to ascertain what are their needs, what are their concerns, what are their aspirations in terms of their future. We then look at that information, it is analyzed, and programs are put in place to ensure that some of the things that they would have identified are coming to fruition as a result of programming from the ministry. So that is standard as it relates to what we're doing in the ministry. The recent block committee and Project Dawn, they're also collecting information across the blocks on this island to find out from those individuals what it is that they want to do, how can we facilitate their needs, what type of programs we need to go back and do to ensure that they are reintegrated, like I mentioned before, into mainstream society. So the research aspect of the ministry is solid, it is in existence, and it will remain that way as it relates to programming. In terms of sports, there are a couple of projects, initiatives that we are looking to roll out that we believe can benefit our target population. At the facilities at Wilde, we're now in the process of doing a couple of things. There's the 400 track that should be started sometime in the new financial year. There's a badminton facility that should be started as well in the new financial year. If you go to the location, you will see that the beach volleyball facility is in the probably the final stages before we can bring that up as well. The ministry would have provided an opportunity for those youngsters who are involved in sports and need to showcase their talent maybe to a coach who is in the US or wherever. There's a portal at the National Sports Council where we can upload videos from those youngsters to send to a particular coach who would be interested in that. The ministry would have provided a wellness center at the Wilde Gymnasium for all National Federation members who are interested in engaging in strength development. So these are some of the programs, Honorable Member, that are coming on stream through the ministry to ensure that we stay relevant for the young people of this country. You would have heard about the summer camps program that is coming, the National Youth Captains program that is coming. So we are currently engaging in looking at what we can do to ensure that young people in this country remain relevant. We're rolling out cultural programs. You would have heard the Principal Youth Development Officer mention the digital project that had some persons, the camp where persons were able to win medals at NIFCA. There's a lot going on within the ministry that is geared towards ensuring that we have, as the Prime Minister would say, those global citizens. So there's a lot that is on the card for this financial year and going forward at the ministry. I hope that I was able to shed some light in terms of what we're doing in terms of research, follow-up, and new initiatives.
Thank you. We share a lot. We will continue to share a lot. We have some data that we will share with you, and hopefully you have some you can share with us in the program, National Crime Prevention Program, where we see where crime is coming from and where crime is occurring and from within the prison and so on. So we'll share that going forward. I just want to close by saying that for me, for 26 years, I've been an advocate for youth and youth work, and I've always asked for more. And Minister, I'm proud today for you and your team to say that y'all have brought more. I've always asked more from being a youth parliamentarian, and I believe that this country needed to reach this stage where it is a good place and a good time to be a young person, and that is the story in Barbados today. Any critic can say anything. There's always room for improvement, because unless you have perfection, there will always be room for improvement. So I want to close by congratulating the ministry sincerely, not just self-congratulation, but I want to congratulate the ministry on a fantastic job, particularly over the last financial year. And to say, closing, my sincere condolences to the team. I know what it is for morale and different things like that. I give you my sincere condolences from me and on behalf of the people of the city of Bridgetown. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't propose to be too long. And of course, I had other matters attended to this morning, so I might be in the same position as the other honourable member who was told that the answer was already given. Though I doubt very much that the answer to my question about St. Joseph will have been given already. St. Joseph has the benefit probably of more community facilities than any other constituency in Barbados. We have, and they say constituency and not parish. We have 3 pavilions. We have 3 sets of hard courts and other facilities. The challenge, though, Mr. Minister, that I face, or that my constituents face, is the absence of what I could only consider to be planned maintenance. To get to the point, really, the pavilion at Lamings was condemned by the National Sports Council in 2021. As a result of the pavilion being condemned, the ability of the community to use the field has been significantly hampered, and as a result, the quality of the field now is in peril. It hasn't been maintained. One of the young men who used to be actively the groundsman simply doesn't do it anymore because there's no pavilion, and therefore sporting activity at that facility is now significantly diminished. So my principal question really is, what is the plan for the rebuilding of a pavilion at Lamings? Lamings is a very densely populated area. It is an area with a lot of young people, a significant amount of challenges, but without that facility, we're not seriously going to be addressing some of the difficulties. And just to get straight through it, Mr. Chairman, I have also to ask about the fact that the hard court in Church Village needs rings, but the Sports Council seems not to check back these things. Similar criticism has to be made of the hard court in Bathsheba. The actual surface has deteriorated over the years, but no attention has been paid to it. I appreciate only too well the challenges that a constituency like mine presents. Rain falls every day, you have slippage and so on that compounds the difficulty. But we can't bury our heads in the sand. And I therefore raise this issue in the interest of my constituents who are very concerned at what appears to be a level of decay that is not seen in other places.
Thank you for the questions, honorable member. So you mentioned Church Village. Where is that in St. Joseph?
By the church. It is the area that we call, in the area of the St. Joseph Parish Church, it's called Church Village.
Okay.
So this is a hard court right opposite.
On the Horse Hill.
In the middle, but right opposite the old parish church.
Right, okay. All right, I hear your concerns. I will ask the director of the Sports Council to respond to you. I am familiar with the pavilion at Lamins because wearing another hat in the ministry, I was present when Hillary would have organized to have the prefab place at the location, but I'll ask the director to speak to the areas that you have identified in St. Joseph. Director?
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Honorable Member for St. Joseph. And your concerns we know about, and they're well noted. The pavilion at Lamins, as you rightly said, had deteriorated to the point that it had to be closed and condemned. We already have it in our plans for the next financial year, 2021, 2024, 2025. We require the drawings and approval. But we have, I think, if my memory serves me right, there was the initial cost of about $1.6 million or thereabouts for that pavilion. But we have that in the financial year 2024-2025. The hard court at Church Village, as you call it, I think we have another name for it. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I think it was Vaughn's Road or something like that. Or something like that, but around there, Horse Hill. We know that the basketballers had gone up to Grantley Adams to play the basketball, but we have asked C.O. Williams for the regrade for that facility right there by opposite the church. So we've asked C.O. Williams for a cost and a regrade on that with a view within the financial year of bringing that back into play. And I think the last one you spoke about was St. Elizabeth Bathsheba. We are actively reviewing that as well for the financial year. As I had indicated earlier, we are working with a depleted budget. We're working with a net of $1.1 million, but we are finding ways to make it happen, and that's what the Sports Council is about. You're not passive, you're not static, and we understand that the development is paramount in this country for the young people, especially sports, and therefore we are working assiduously to try to ensure that the constituents are happy. Thank you, and their representative, of course. Thank you.
Honorable Member for St. Michael's Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleasant good afternoon to you, Minister, and to your entire team. Let me say from the outset, I share a number of the similar concerns of my colleagues, albeit that perhaps my approach has been slightly different somewhat to the viewing of the Ministry of Youth and Community Development and Sports, in that I see the ministry as a facilitator, similar to the Ministry of Culture, It is not the savior of all things related to youth or sporting facilities or the solutions in terms of all of our issues within communities. I think it requires a thought that while the ministry facilitates, the responsibility of the businesses within communities to play a role in helping to develop sporting activities in these areas is an absolute necessity. As one of the ministers said earlier, the $2,500 that we are provided cannot in any way do a lot of the activities, whether in sports or in a lot of aspects of the community. And therefore, the reliance is on corporate entities, on our own resources, on the government resources, but also on community development and sports to be able to help to facilitate programs that ministers and MPs would like to see within the community. Minister, I am often a critic, but I must say that I've enjoyed the relationship that I've had with your ministry, and this is even preceding you as minister. And maybe it is because I approach it as though we are partners, we are working together, we try to identify what the issues are, what the young people would like to do within the community. And I can say that with the introduction of, I think it is the youth development officers, St. Michael's Office has benefited considerably from a number of the programs that in the last few years have been offered to the residents of my community. And it has been able to impact in such a way that, I mean, there are so many programs now that I see young people participating in. In particular, the Parkinson Resource Center, which was redone by the Maria Holder Trust in conjunction with the ministry, is now a hive of activity once again. We had a lot of concerns because this community's facility was one certainly that for many, many years was a hive of activity. And then once the repairs were needed and they'd been left abated for a long time, once that was done, we're starting to see now the uptick in activities there. And I do appreciate the support that has been given by your ministry in relation to that facility. I am mindful, Minister, that, you know, all of us, all 30 of us in here will ask questions regarding specific, more parochial matters. So while I boast of the Parkinson Resource Center, I'm mindful that in the constituency, I have other facilities as well that I believe are not as equally attended to. And I want to raise one which I would hope that you or your team can respond to, the Meadow Road facility. It is a facility quite near to the Stokes and Brighton Stokes area in Wildy. In the last year, I believe, the facility was closed for renovations to take place. We'd been in discussions in relation to a corporate entity with an interest in being able to help to develop that particular space and to help to build out a new facility. And I just wanted to know, for the benefit of the residents of St. Michael's Southeast, where are we with that particular proposal? Because while I know that you are actively working on it, it has been almost over a year, and we have not actually had the use of the actual pavilion at that location. The field, you can use the field, but I think that while the process has to take place to acquire the permissions, a community obviously has nowhere to really engage in competitive sports or to be able to use an actual recreational space on evenings, whether young people or elderly. And so I would like an update as it relates to this year's estimates and whether provision has actually been made to take into account the upgrade of the Meadow Road facility in Wildy.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. I will ask the Director to respond to you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Member, for the constituency of St. Michael's Southeast. Indeed, you spoke to the NSCS facilitator, but over the last year, you have been at the vanguard of being the facilitator between the National Sports Council and the residents. I remember a couple of evenings where we met with the members of the constituency regarding the same pavilion, and including some very young children there who were gung-ho about some of the sports they wanted to engage in, boxing and so on and so forth. And we have had drawings there at the facility. We have sent those drawings to the Planning and Development Department for approval. We haven't gotten them back as yet. But what we will see there is an enhanced facility which will have both sporting and entrepreneurship as part and parcel of its makeup. In addition to facilitating the hard courts, regrading the hard courts, we are just awaiting, and we really couldn't do anything much there at the facility until those plans got approved. We're also working, as you indicated, with a corporate entity in the area towards the total development of not only the playing field, but that particular facility as well. So I can say to you at this point, Minister and the constituents, that the Sports Council is working hand in glove with the Minister for the constituency, and we are waiting the approval for the implementation of works there for the facility at Meadow Road. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mr. Merle, for the update. And just to say that I do feel the time has now come for us to have not just a national policy on sports, but we also need to have a Sports Development Act as well to be able to govern the incentives that are necessary for the corporate entities, for individuals, for charities, for people living in the diaspora who may want to identify with a particular project in a community and be able to support that by way of financial support. The project of which you speak, again, without saying too much, is again in keeping with how I view your ministry. And I believe that there are lots of opportunities out there for corporate entities and individuals to be able to support the programs of your ministry. But what may be required at this point is perhaps as you move towards having the actual legislation put in place and drafted, which I know will take some time, maybe having a dedicated officer who starts to look at the types of projects that could perhaps be of interest to persons wanting to invest within communities. We have a number of people in the diaspora who are interested in giving back to Barbados. In the tourism, under the tourism head, I would have raised the issue of volunteerism. And that is an area as well that I think can also benefit the Ministry of Sports and certainly youth in terms of the identification of projects which may be of interest to people. It is a concept, I think, that it can work for education, and we've done a lot of work with the diaspora in education with the volunteerism. We've also seen the benefits of it in tourism. And I would urge you to start to explore perhaps identifying a number of the projects that are across various constituencies that you would want to engage in, and perhaps engage more with these individuals and companies to see if they are interested in matching what government is doing. Because there is no way that we will be able to achieve the wish list that we all have in this space for the development and the future development of sports in this country. But I think the sports development incentive legislation would be a good starting point, and it would help to build on what you currently have in terms of an actual framework and policy for sports in this country as well. The other area, Minister, that I would want you perhaps to touch on is the concept for the Map Hill Pavilion. Because again, this is one of the older pavilions. I am pleased to say that I am the product of a legacy in St. Michael's Southeast, where my father, who was a former Minister of Sports and representative for the community of St. Michael's Southeast, heavily invested in the entire sporting discipline. And the name Bradshaw became synonymous with every sporting activity and discipline across that community. So whether it was football boots, whether it was basketballs, whether it was the erection of lights across the constituency, my father would have been at the forefront of that. And I believe that the Map Hill Pavilion, which is what I consider is the center, it's like a mecca in the country. It serves not just St. Michael's Southeast, but it serves the St. George area. It also serves the St. Philip area as well, because everybody uses that particular field. It has been well maintained over the years, and I do feel that the time has now come for us to be able to develop that and to its full potential. And I would want to hear whether you have any plans for that facility. I know the stadia was it was identified for one of the mini stadia, but I would like to know what is the status of those plans for this financial year.
Okay, thank you for the question. Director, can you respond, please?
Thank you, Minister. Yes, we had a concept proposal that we are looking at in terms of Map Hill. We have not included it, though, in the next financial year, but we will work to see how we can build out that concept into something more meaningful as we approach the following financial year. But we will, that concept had a lot of things in it, swimming pools and so on and so forth. But we didn't include it this year, but we will look during the interim period to see how we can look at having an implementable project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And just lastly, just to follow on from the honourable member who spoke prior to my joining the session. As it relates to maintenance, I think we've heard a lot about the maintenance of the facilities generally in the course of this discussion on the head. And I hear the plans that are in place for the maintenance of the facilities. And this is more perhaps not so much of a question, because I think we've exhausted what you're doing in terms of maintenance. But it's more by way of comment. I think we have reached that point where across ministries, we have not been very good at addressing the issue of maintenance. As Minister of Public Works, I can tell you, I have had my own challenges, and I've made it very public what those challenges have been from time to time. But I do feel that given all of the concerns that have been raised here and that are raised almost every year in relation to the estimates under this head, perhaps that time has now come for us to, in a sense, outsource a lot of the works that we have heard are of concern to communities, and in so doing, being able to have the ministry provide more oversight over the persons that are engaged to be able to do the facilities management of the facilities. It is difficult, I know, because in many cases you don't have the resources to be able to do all of the 30 MPs who are calling on you constantly. But I think that we've seen the benefits certainly in roads, being able to do some of the outsourcing and to have the ministry staff provide oversight. And I think that the time has now come for us, not across every single ministry, but I think there are key ministries where we may get a better outcome across the maintenance of our facilities if we are able to rationalize the existing staff and allow them to oversee, set the specifications for what is required across each community, and then work systematically to be able to have those plans unfold. Of course, that requires resources, but I think once you're able to streamline, the plans that you've outlined, Minister, I think would be far more effective if there is a dedicated team that is simply looking at the maintenance of the structures across the communities. You have introduced what you term the center management. We've benefited from it in St. Michael Southeast. The community residents get involved in actually running the facility along with community development officers. And that, for the most part, has worked well. But I think we need to now expand that as well to allow persons to become more involved in making these facilities, not just 24 hours, but as long as they possibly can be open to facilitate the elderly and young people across the communities. So I, again, commend you. I know it's been difficult for this ministry as well. This government has had to focus considerably on, keeping the economy stable. And in many cases, we've not been able to focus heavily on the area of sports or community development. I think now is the time where you have a perfect opportunity in the ministry to be able to build on the last few years and to really catapult sports and sporting initiatives in the country, as well as to help to improve a number of the communities. So thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister, for your words. And I agree with you, and we have started to outsource in some areas. So I will take to heart a lot of what you would have suggested.
Honorable Minister, you would have your opportunity to wrap up after you have responded to these questions which I'm raising on behalf of the constituency of St. Thomas, since their MP is not in a position to do so. First, and I'll say all three one time. The first query is with respect to the social center at Rock Hall, St. Thomas, which was taken out of operation in 1987 for the facilitation of construction of District D Police Complex. The residents there now have no facility, and a report on update or status report is being requested as to what is happening there. In addition, Hill House Center at Dunscombe Hill. Hill House Center at Dunscombe Hill, it is in dire need of upgrade. It facilitates several residents from Canefield and Spring Farm and Porish Spring, etc., etc. And there is a request, this third one, for lights at the Holy Innocents Pavilion with respect to when you were constructing the mini stadium. Honorable Minister, you may respond, and immediately after you respond, your response, you can do your wrap-up and move the head.
All right, thank you, Chair. In relation to these questions, I will ask Mrs. Skeet from CDD to look at or speak to the Rock Hall and the Dunscombe issue, and Mr. Matthias to speak to the concern at Holy Innocent.
Good evening once again. In relation to the facility at Rock Hall, St. Thomas, that facility is a facility we took over the management of just under 2 years. We've started the process of, we have the plans for the refurbishment of that facility, but we confronted one or two issues in relation to seeking the services of a quantity surveyor. We reached out to the Ministry of Transport and Works, and they were assisting us up to earlier this year. But certainly, from what I understand, they too have their challenges, and the decision was then made that we would outsource those services, the services of a QS. So at this point, I can say that we started the gutting of the facility, the interior, because that was required, so we can have an assessment done. So we're at the phase now where we would employ the services of a quantity surveyor who would then advise us in relation to the cost or proposed cost of the refurbishment. But the refurbishment of that facility was placed in the estimates for this financial year. We allocated $200,000 to start the first phase of that work.
Good afternoon once again. In response to the question at Holy Innocents, first let me say that it's Bridgefield that has the mini stadium. Currently work is being done there for the mini stadium aspect. Holy Innocents was part of the original lighting project where we put 6 light poles there. We put 5. The 6th one was being put in place, and the cricket team had requested a meeting where the honorable member who's not here would have facilitated that meeting, and an agreement was made where we will try to shift that 6th pole off site, which is land that the Sports Council does not own. So the process is we are trying to get permission from the owners of that piece of land to place the extra 6 pole there to facilitate. Where it was initially was a hindrance to what the cricket team and the school actually had wanted, because it impacted the field, and it's situated in such a way that there's a right-of-way on the north side of the field that is impacting on where we situate that pole. So with approvals, we will be able to put up that final pole at Holy Innocents and get that project finished in totality.
Chair, on Friday, when I started this I said that I had a story to tell. Um, Late Tuesday, I am pleased to say that along with my team, the story was told. It is not,
Before you move on, before you wrap up, Honorable Minister, I didn't hear, might have missed it, the response with respect to Hill House. Hill House at Dunscombe Hill. The facility, Hill House Center at Dunscombe Hill.
Ms. Skeet?
In relation to the Hill House project, that was, from what I gather and from the research, that was a private facility really donated to a group there. We had discussions, I think that was 2 years ago, but I have not seen from the Community Development Department, I have not seen a request, or a request was not submitted in relation to any financial assistance or any type of funding for the upkeep of that facility. But certainly if, like with all of the others, all of the other requests, if that is a request coming from the Member of Parliament for St. Thomas, the Community Development Department, we would certainly see how we can address that.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, you may proceed with your wrap-up.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned before the story was told, it is evident from the submissions, the questions that came from the honorable members, that they too had a story to tell in relation to the function of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. Our goal, Chair, is to empower our young people to build a cohesive society through full involvement of the youth and communities, and I think that we are well on our way to doing that. Every single day we come to work at the ministry to be proactive in terms of delivering the services that I know our young people require of us, and government is putting the necessary resources on an annual basis, and this financial year coming is no exception. And we will seek to empower. We will seek to do that thing that I mentioned again, facilitate the needs and aspiration of all of our young people. If we're asking them to fly, then we must give them the wings, and the ministry is well placed to ensure that we have success at every single level. We continue to unfold and to unroll new programs that we think will be interactive, new programs that will capture the attention of our young people. It is interesting, like I said initially, that I had a target for the next financial year that we now have to revisit in terms of the number of people that we will seek to train in the ministry in various disciplines. We continue to expand, and that is the mantra for this financial year, to expand as many of our programs through satellite locations as possible. So I look forward to new things, scaling new heights, bringing new initiatives to the young people of this country during the financial year 2024-2025. With that, Chair, I beg that Head 91 stand par.
The question is that Head 91 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report progress to Her Honor, the Deputy Speaker.
The question is that I do not report progress to Her Honor, the Deputy Speaker. And ask for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. All honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Honorable members, Chairman has reported progress and has asked for leave again. Honorable members, beg your pardon, ma'am.
Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Leader of Government's Business.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until tomorrow, the 13th of March at 9:30 a.m.
Question is that this honorable chamber resume its session tomorrow, be suspended until tomorrow, the 13th of March at 9:30 a.m. Honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This session stands suspended until tomorrow, March the 13th at 9:30 a.m.